So Thunderbolts is the new... Should I even still call it Thunderbolts? I mean, if you live on the internet, by now you probably know the real meaning behind the title of the movie. You know what? On the off chance you're not on X, I'll still refer to it as that. So Thunderbolts is the newest movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the concluding movie in Phase 5 of the MCU. Basically, the plot of this movie is you have this team of side characters, these anti-heroes, if you even want to call them that. They've mostly been antagonists in a lot of projects that they've been in. A little bit of the forgotten characters, if you will, and in this movie, circumstances go down that kind of force them to team up against a much bigger threat that eventually comes to fruition. This was not a movie I really had on my radar. This was not a Marvel movie that I was particularly excited for. In fact, I had little to no expectations for this movie, because it follows a little bit of that Guardians of the Galaxy vibe when that first came out. You know, in Guardians of the Galaxy, you had a group of characters that none of us had knew of prior to this franchise. Really, unless you were a die-hard Marvel fan, you didn't know who those people were. I mean, you could say the marketing for that movie is what really helped its cause and really bringing it to popularity and everything like that. But right now, Thunderbolts was kind of dealing with a much bigger obstacle. I mean, one, not only was this movie dealing with being a team of characters that maybe not a whole lot of us were particularly invested with, or really cared about, or even remembered for that matter. I mean, the MCU's had a rough patch going for itself as of late, so, you know, it's a little bit more of a reason to not feel super confident in a movie like this, because of the recent track record. But this movie was undeniably getting some extremely positive reviews going into the premiere of this movie, so I thought, okay, I wasn't gonna like totally buy into the hype necessarily, but it gave me reason to think, alright, definitely still gonna check this one out and see if it does live up to all that. Especially when people are going so far to say that this is the best Marvel movie we have gotten since Avengers Endgame. So one thing I will say right out the gate that works really well for this movie, I thought the cast all around did a great job. Florence Pugh is back as Yelena. She's basically the star of this movie, the main character if you want to go that far. And what I really liked about her character is ultimately what she's dealing with, because she's going through a really rough patch. I mean, her sister has died, she's no longer around, you know, she's just doing these missions that are being assigned to her just for whatever she needs to do, but none of them feel very fulfilling to her. She kind of just feels like she's just eking her way through life. She's clearly depressed, she's clearly down on her luck, and, you know, she's ultimately wondering what the point of her doing what she's doing is. I liked seeing that with her. It showed a little bit more of her vulnerability. It showed a little bit more of the weight that maybe having these gifts and having these abilities can ultimately have on you, or what it's like to live your life when you feel like you've lost everything. It was heavy subject matter with her, and I really appreciated that. Also, I thought Bucky was great in this movie, and I thought he felt like a really essential character to what is ultimately the driving point of this movie, which is bringing a team together with these characters. Because Bucky's the only one in this group that knows what it's like to be a part of a team. He knows what it's like to be a part of something much bigger than him. You kind of feel like this group of heroes or this group of people need him to show them what it means to be a team. Because that is an area that I really liked seeing with this group of characters. You know, it kind of harkens back to what happened in the Avengers. You know, you took these big, powerful heroes with all very contrasting personalities. You put them together. It's not like they immediately came together as a team. They clashed. They argued. They had their differences. And in this case, you are dealing with what General Ross would consider a group of vigilantes. These people aren't exactly heroes. Like, they're not necessarily about fighting for truth and justice and all that great shit. No, they're kind of out for their own desires mostly. So when you put them in a room together, not only are they gonna clash, they're maybe not really gonna want anything to do with one another. You feel like Bucky is the one that kind of drove it home for them, kind of like helped them be able to break through their barriers just a little bit and become a team for the sake of something much bigger. The team definitely had some other standouts as well. I mean, Red Guardian I thought was great in this movie. He provided that Marvel comic relief, but in a way that wasn't cringy. I thought his humor for the most part was very well timed, because he easily has the most positive outlook on this whole situation. He thinks the idea of them all coming together to form a team is the best thing for all of them. You know, he feels excited. He feels thrilled to be a part of something. Like, he wanted to get back out there and be a superhero again. So he has this undeniable enthusiasm to himself that's very infectious and just made me laugh at all the parts that needed to make me laugh. John Walker, U.S. agent, also provided a lot more comedy than I thought he was going to. I mean, he comes off a little bit like the jock douchebag a little bit. Like, yeah, he was this decorated soldier, you know, he was Captain America for 5 minutes before he fucked that up for himself. But he's definitely got that super soldier arrogance to himself now, you know, where he thinks he knows what to do and he actually ends up not really knowing what to do, and it really puts him in his place. It ended up working for the story because through that, you start seeing more of the shield that he's putting up for himself. You see what's behind there. And you see, like many of the other characters, he has some damage to himself. He's been through some shit. He's kind of fucked up his life quite a bit beyond what we've seen in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's what I appreciate. This movie just did a phenomenal job at showing the human inside these superheroes. They deal with loss, they deal with tragedy, they make mistakes that completely screw them up, and it's very relatable because we all do that. Situations that are not our fault or are completely our fault, we all feel some shame and we feel some hurt and we feel a lot of pain in what we've done to maybe ourselves, and not even just ourselves, the people that we care about. But yeah, what was probably my favorite character in this movie? Lewis Pullman as Bob. I thought Bob was great. I'm trying to spoil too much about Bob's character, but what made Bob really unique is you almost feel like Lewis Pullman had to play a few different sides of this character. Because when you first meet Bob, he's this very kind of useless, just ordinary guy. He's scared, he's kind of panicked of everything. He's clearly a very broken individual. You kind of wonder what he's going to provide to the story. It just kind of feels like someone the heroes or the superhumans of this story need to kind of babysit. But you quickly realize there's a lot more to him than we first see, and Lewis Pullman, I thought, did an amazing job at really showing us the different sides of this character and the growth in this character. Made me very excited for him as the movie went along, and I cannot wait to see what they do with Bob in the future of the MCU. Also, yeah, I thought Valentina, who was played by Elaine from Seinfeld, I thought she was a really good villain in this story. She obviously has an Amanda Waller vibe to herself, and like she's the one who kind of brings these characters together and forces them to be a team, or not really forces, but through circumstances does kind of force them to be a team. Like, she's the real villain of the story, and, you know, it follows a very Suicide Squad formulaic plot, but, you know, Thunderbolts is kind of meant to be Marvel's answer to the Suicide Squad, so while it was familiar, it made sense. But yeah, she's a pretty despicable human being. You know, you really want the characters to bring her down. You kind of want her to meet her end at any point. She was a great person to root against, and I thought Elaine from Seinfeld did a great job at portraying her that way. Not every character in this movie stands out all that much. I mean, I will say, if you're a diehard Taskmaster fan from what we got in Black Widow, well, you'll be disappointed, I'll say that much. But another character like Ghost, I didn't think she provided too much to the story, which is kind of disappointing because I feel like all the other characters, we delved a lot more into them, you know, their characters really grew and developed. She kind of just felt like she was there. Felt a lot like an NBA squad where it's like you have your starting five. Is it five? Let's see, it's Yelena, Red Guardian, Bucky, US Agent, and Bob. Yeah, there you go. So she feels like that sixth man coming off the bench, and she's not exactly gonna win Sixth Man of the Year over here. I can tell the movie wanted me to care about her more, but it didn't really feel like she had a lot of moments to shine. There weren't a lot of moments where she really stood out to me, and that was a little bit of a bummer. I will say, how's the action in this movie? I thought the action in this movie was very well done. It's got a lot of comparisons to Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and I can see why. Like, it doesn't go for a lot of really big scale, high-end action, but the action goes down, it's very intense, it's gritty, it's fun, it has a very military vibe to it. I thought it worked for the movie. None of it felt out of place. It didn't feel like the final act of Shang-Chi where it just felt like it didn't make any sense or anything like that. This action that's in this movie felt right. But where I give this movie probably the most credit is it feels very different from other Marvel movies, and that is what Marvel needs right now. And like I mentioned, there are certain elements of this movie that are very formulaic, that we've seen 100 times over with every superhero movie that's ever been made. Yes, but the movie takes certain angles with its storytelling, with its characters. It delves into very mature themes in its storytelling. Like, this movie was kind of marketed as having a very A24 vibe to it, and it absolutely does. Like, there's some moments in this movie that feel different, feel weird, if you will, feel like they try to go a little bit deeper than just being what its genre is. So as a result, this is a movie that, while it has fun action, it doesn't rely on the action that most superhero movies rely on. It relies on its themes, and this is a movie that really delves into some very mature themes here, and those themes are depression and mental health, people who have thoughts of suicide, and people who go through loss, whether it's on them or it's not on them, various different mental diseases that people have. It does a really good job at unpacking the trauma that a lot of these characters have, and undeniably, you see what some characters went through in their lives, like their childhood or their past, and I didn't lie to you guys if I said I wasn't feeling it, because I absolutely was feeling it. There's one scene in particular, they're really unpacking one character's drama, and I could feel my eyes welling up just a little bit. Maybe that makes me sappy or whatever, but I can't deny it. I felt it that way. Even like when it comes to like the final act of the movie, some people might say they felt a little underwhelmed by it because it wasn't like the big grand spectacle that we're used to in Marvel movies. But for me, it was a lot more grounded and simple, and maybe a little bit metaphorical even. But I thought it completely worked. Like, we all have darkness in ourselves that sometimes can completely take over us, and sometimes it doesn't take just us to do it. We need the support of others to do that. Like, you need the people around you to let you know that it's okay to not be okay. And that's some powerful shit. One other flaw that I will say I had with this movie ultimately, though, is there is a moment, kind of like I alluded to, where you start unpacking some characters' traumas and their pasts, and you learn a lot more about what they've gone through. And for me, there's a moment where they really channel in on a couple of characters in particular, and they kind of just ignore the others entirely. I don't know, one could argue, because we've seen a lot of these characters in previous projects and movies and all of that, that was basically us knowing about their trauma and the shit they dealt with. Yes, I understand that. But you can't deny that if they unpacked their trauma as well, it would have added a lot more to the story, and it would have added a lot more to some character development. But yeah, undeniably, I thought the ending of this movie was great, and above all that, it's a movie that has me excited for the future of the MCU again, because this established clear clarity on where it's going. It established direction. And I'll tell you guys this much, first post-credit scene in a very long time that has me psyched for the future of the MCU. So all in all, I went into Thunderbolts with no expectations, and I ended up really digging this movie. The cast across the board I thought did a really good job. I really liked seeing this team of vigilantes ultimately come together and become heroes. The movie has impressive action, but I like that the action wasn't the focal point of this movie. I like that this movie went for being something different than we've gotten in the MCU. Might feel a little formulaic at times, especially when you compare it to movies like Suicide Squad or even other Marvel movies for that matter. There are definitely some characters that could have been fleshed out a little bit more. But I love that this movie went for much darker and more mature themes in its storytelling. It's some that I think, as young adults or adults in general, I think are really going to connect with this movie because, you know, the more you go through life, the more you unpack the demons that you've fought in your life and the hardships you've went through and the trauma that you have. It's a movie that hits you in a type of way that I can't remember a Marvel movie that has done that. The question that everyone will now ask, is it the best MCU movie since Avengers Endgame? For me, I can't go that far yet. I would still put Spider-Man No Way Home in the elite tier all by itself. However, I would put this movie in the really good to great tier that I have other MCU movies post-Endgame like Deadpool and Wolverine and Guardians 3. In the end, I walked out of this movie really digging these characters, excited to see them again, and pumped for the future of the MCU. I still can't say if the MCU is all the way back yet like some people are. For me, that's still riding on the Fantastic Four first steps. If that movie is great, then yes, I will come on here and I will say the MCU is back. If it's not, then I will still say we've got some ways to go. But Thunderbolts absolutely inspired some much needed confidence into this franchise, and for that, I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10, which makes this one worth buying on physical home media.
Shut up and take my money.
So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video, and as always, don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.